Question 2. Yeah, I know, I changed my outfit. I want to make sure you don't get question 1 and question 2 confused. This is for you. Hi, my name is Dami. Welcome back to my channel. We are still on with our diversity and inclusion expert, Taya Roxon, and the discussion is still on the global gag rule in the context of the themes of the New York Times best-selling book, Children of Blood and Bone. Yeah, that's a mouthful. In case you missed the previous video, check it out so you can follow along in the discussion. Okay, so the next question, the quote that I have for you, I've been a sheep when my kingdom needed me to be a king. So this was spoken by Inan to, I believe, Zeli at this point. So my first question, comparing Inan and Amari, both in positions of privilege, despite the mayhem going on in Orisha, how would you explain the difference in how they chose to challenge their unconscious biases about other people, other enemies, supposed enemies?
I think with Amari, she lost her best friend, right?
Right.
She saw that really quickly. This is someone she had grown close to, and she was shrouded in privilege for sure, yes. But her witnessing like the way her best friend was lost, and then just coming to terms with that was really jarring for her, because she didn't see her best friend as a threat the way her father did, or any of them did. And when you lose that person, I think that just made her really question everything that she had. And not, I think Adnan was just, he always wanted to live up to his dad, and dad was pretty strict, and this was like how I was taught justice, and there's even some toxic masculinity that could come into play.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah. It felt like he had to be a man in that way, and that was his only way of doing that. And so even when he knew that he actually had magic, he didn't want to come to terms with that fact, and that's a society type thing. And I think the difference of both of them is that one was braver to question the status quo, and Inan just wasn't willing to do that for the longest time, and it took him a long time. He wasn't willing to do that, and that's the dangerous thing that we live in. I started our conversation saying a lot of us don't practice critical thinking. We just accept things the way we're told, or we learned that from school, or our parents told us. And that's really the difference. I think a lot of people need to do research. And I think everybody needs to understand why they believe in what they believe.
Right.
And I always ask questions: what are your values? And then I probe further, why? Like, why do you believe it? And don't tell me your parents told you. Don't tell me you learned that in school. Tell me why you think that. Yeah. And I think if both of them did that, it would have been different for them, because that's really what that sheep in your kingdom means. When if you need to be king, you need to have independent thought. You need to be able to think for yourself and act in based on your own values.
Yeah. It's also interesting. I would think, what I was thinking, that Inan would have been more, like, I guess, likely to get on the other side of the team, considering he actually saw Zeli's history. Like, he saw the past, she saw everything that she'd been through, actually felt the pain as well. Yeah. But it seemed like the dad's influence was that strong.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think there's maybe something like, having a father figure, like that dichotomy between, like, I really look up to this person and I really want to please them? Is there a way that could have played into why he was so strong-headed? Like, no matter what, even though he saw it clearly, he still was so
I think toxic masculinity is a thing that, we know many people that on the outside might seem like good people, and then, you look deeper in the skeletons and you might be surprised at things they do. And that doesn't make them a bad person, but a lot of times when they act that way, it's like they're living to some weird ideal of what a man should be. And I think generations after generations have told us, young boys, that, I hate the phrase be a man, but because that makes it look like there's only one type of way to be a man. Be strong, macho, don't show emotions, hide that stuff. And that's kind of what his dad was like. And like, what? No, be a word, fight. What are you doing? Don't show weakness.
Duty of yourself.
And I definitely, I think that played almost a 100% role in that, because it just blinded him from the truth. And that's the real danger, when you blind yourself from the truth. And I'm sure in his heart of hearts, when we were reading, he wanted to be a good person. But if you get to the point where you start to hate yourself, I mean, you know that you have magic, and you're like, I hate myself, I don't want people to do that. That's a real dangerous place. And a lot of people practice self-hate today. So because of how we've been told, we've been taught, And that's the dangerous thing there.
Yeah. Speaking of unconscious biases, you mentioned earlier about the police brutality as well. Do you think unconscious biases can be changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think once they become conscious, right, we have to make an effort to be, consciously unbiased. but
Yeah.
and the reason why that is yes, bias is a natural human emotion. We all have it. It's a way we process information. It's shortcuts for us. With what we have to do is make an active effort of identifying what those unconscious biases are. Like if it's, what is it? Is it homeless people? Is it people of low economic status, people from different cultures? Anytime you find yourself feeling uncomfortable, I always encourage people to say, well, that doesn't make you a bad person. Everybody feels some way. But let's work through why you feel that way. Like, what are the reasons you feel that way? And that's how you do that. So, and I think, yes, if people start doing that and being honest with themselves and understanding that it doesn't make them a bad person, yes, we can get to a part where it's more conscious. I mean, we've seen skinheads turn to normal people, black allies in the end, right?
Yeah.
But that took a lot of, admitting that I have judged people based on one caricature of them, and I just thought that I was better. And so, it all comes down to addressing that and really learning not to humanize people. When people think they're better than others, is because they really think they're better than others. And if you humanize people, you understand that, everybody has their own path, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that is actually true. So, next question. So, my nonprofit, we were in Nigeria sometime in 2015, and we're talking about STDs and asking people questions about if they've ever gotten tested for STDs, would they get tested if it was free, along those lines. So the video was shot by an organization a media house. They're called Batterbox, very popular in Nigeria. It was put on YouTube. So one of the Facebook posts that they put up, someone commented saying, why should I care about STDs and HIV/AIDS? There are a lot more things to worry about. And growing up in Nigeria, there are things to worry about, like there's electricity, there's water, there's so many other issues to worry about. But the point is, my initial thought was, well, at least I picked a cause. What are you doing? So my question now is, do people need to be affected by inequality to act? And do you think that's probably why it's still being perpetuated? Because if you're so far removed from a problem, you're not able to, I guess, empathize or get what people are going through. Do you think that contributes to it?
No, it does. I mean, if people don't feel something, they don't know that it's something to care about. That's why, when people talk about check your privilege, that's what they mean. Like, even me as a black man, there's a certain privilege I have. I can walk past the street here and not have to worry about being harassed, right? So to me, if someone is saying something to me, if I wasn't aware, I could say, well, what are you talking about? Someone just, no one harassed. I walk down the street. That's looking at it through your lens.
Yeah.
And so yes, if you don't know if you don't train yourself to look at things through other people's lens, which is empathy essentially, or perspective taking, yes, it's a problem. The statement, why should you care about STDs because it doesn't directly affect you, has nothing to do with you, but the environment you have, because it is indirectly going to affect the country you live in some way, whether it's the GDP, the poverty level, the access to jobs. You may think about lack of opportunities that could happen for people if they don't get access to good healthcare or access to good education. I'm just giving different opportunities. That could raise a crime rate because those people have no other option. And then you could indirectly be affected by that crime because you chose not to care. Right. So even if you don't see it now, there's no saying what could happen to it. It doesn't matter. And I think with that question, that just screams a lack of empathy, right? And that's something that I think people can be trained in. This emotional intelligence that people have to understand. I think on some level, I'm butchering the quote now. Martin Luther King says the world will begin to end something like when good men and women fail to act, or something like that. I'm butchering it, but that's throughout every history. A bad man or a dictator or a bad woman will come and say, I'm going to solve your problem. These are the people to blame. And people are like, yes, we have someone to blame. Let's go with this guy or lady. He's going to solve our problems. And because people are quick to transfer their problems, I don't want to deal with that. This person's going to deal with that. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
And bad people never have a problem coming out with something. A lot of good people feel too comfortable in their own world and they don't do anything. And then when the situation happens, they ask, how did we get here?
Right.
This is how we got here.
Complacency and yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
it's interesting. I read a poem. I can't remember what it's who wrote the poem, but it was basically they came for the policeman and I didn't do anything. So they came for basically everybody in the village, and then eventually at the end of the poem, they came for me. So in a way, that I think about that because people don't feel the need to act. I feel because they're not affected by it. And the story I was telling you earlier on as well. Not that I don't care, but like when it hits you closer to home, then you feel the need to act.
Yes.
With HIV, for example, like HIV is just one of it. Like with the Rise, what we try to also shine a light on other STDs in Nigeria, because if you have other STDs that could be treated, the chances of you getting HIV is increased. Yeah. Everybody has, like almost everybody's having sex in Nigeria.
Well, there you go.
Exactly. And the things like you don't even have to be, it's not necessarily the young people. You can be married and still have an STD. So the message is not just for the young people. The message is not about promiscuity. The message is, are you married? Are you getting tested? Are you monogamous? Yeah. We know that doesn't happen all the time. You see celebrities, you see divorces, like things like that are happening. But the whole idea is like arming people with knowledge, but also knowledge of your environment, like other people that are around you. No, it's not just about I'm here for myself and that's all I care about. Because if you're only caring about yourself, then when there's so much inequality right now, like with the GAG rule right now, the pregnant women are the ones, like heavily pregnant women are going to protest. And young people could obviously be helping out with these things, but it's like, I'm so far removed from that, I don't have to do anything. So is it when it happens to your sister and it's like, you know, she's not able to like, maybe she has a miscarriage or something, or say, for example, she dies while trying to have a baby. If you had protested that a long time ago, it's like everything kind of like feeds in like a loop.
Absolutely. It's crazy. And it goes to your first, the point you made earlier about knowledge, right? A lot of people will say, well, why do I need to care about that? If you don't care about this, you just don't know. Right. And if we look at a lot of activists, whether it's rich people or actors or all these people that get involved, one of the first things they always say is, I just didn't know. Right? Or any of these ambassadors, I always watch a lot of UN ambassadors sometimes. And, you know, whether they go into different countries and they just put themselves there. I didn't know that, you know, I thought I knew poverty, but I didn't know poverty was That's like this. And it's because that people see people drinking water that they wouldn't drink, that they wouldn't use to wash their dogs, and like, oh, that's considered water, but that's really what it is. And I think a lot of people really, I think there are two reasons why people don't feel like they can change the world is because they have a fixed mindset, and that's true. There's no that they have limited exposure, limited worldviews, and the more we expose ourselves to things that are different from us, and the more we try and live out of a fixed mindset, the more curiosity you'll have about helping other people. To
add to that point, part of doing this is also to enlighten Americans about what's going on in other developing countries.
Yes.
Because the global GAG, yes, it's basically defunding abortion, but there are other things that are affected. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, actually, when this whole thing was happening, they basically put out a statement saying, we're not going to be able to take care of the women and children by ourselves without the funding. If you don't have access to contraceptives, then obviously the number of unwanted pregnancies is going to increase. And if people can't find hospitals to go and get, I don't know, figure out what the solution is, or like, you know, have access to condoms, then the abortion rate is actually going up. And it seems like the global GAG is basically, the effect that it's trying not to have is even more pronounced as a result of the restriction, which is insane. But
yeah, I mean, like you're right. The contraceptives, condoms, even the linkage to malaria and all these disease systems. That's what was baffling to me. It's why I was reading about the policy. I was like, how can people be so confident making these laws? Right. Because it's more than just being pro-life. This has way more potential.
Too many things included.
Yeah, and that's the problem with simplistic type of thinking. Many things are rarely black and white, right?
Right.
And I always have a problem when, whenever anyone is elected in power, I'm always saying, if you're going to say you're for the people, you make sure you're doing the work to know how the same set of laws affect different set of people. Because just because you've been used to how this law affected you, it's not the same way it's going to translate to other people.
Right.
There are many ways that people think and it's not the same way you think.
Exactly.
And so, I think it's a great education opportunity. I didn't know about it, and the more I read about it, the angrier I got, because I was like, this is taking away so much more than just abortion. So
exactly. Yeah. We have come to the end of our second discussion. I would love to hear your thoughts on privilege, challenging unconscious biases, and the need to act when you're not affected by inequality. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video for question 3. And don't forget to do the needful. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Do the needful.